On our 10th anniversary, my wife, Eleanor, didn't come home. Early the next morning, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw it on her assistant story. A picture of two hands, fingers intertwined. The caption read, "Met you at 22. Here's to a lifetime with you." The matching ring tattoos on their fourth fingers were impossible to miss. Staring at the familiar mole on one of the hands, I calmly commented, "Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." A moment later, my phone rang. It was Eleanor. "What's with the passive-aggressive crap, Ethan?" she snapped. "It's a temporary tattoo. You're a grown man. Stop acting so jealous. It's pathetic." After she hung up, I took off the wedding band I hadn't removed in a decade and dropped into the kitchen trash. Eleanor got home as I was finishing up packing a garbage bag with all the his and her stuff we'd accumulated over the years. Her brow furrowed as she scanned the living room. "Why is half the stuff in here gone?" I tied a knot in the bag before looking up at her. After 10 years, it just felt like time to throw out the useless junk. Her expression soured. "What's useless junk? Just because I'm finally making real money, you think we can be wasteful? I swear, the most useless thing in this house is you." I didn't say anything back, just kept working. After taking the bag out, I headed for the bathroom to wash up. Eleanor stepped in front of me, blocking my way. "First, I need you to make a suit for me. Here are the measurements." She handed me a piece of paper with a list of figures: height, weight, inseam. They say a good tailor's eye is its own ruler. One glance at the numbers, and I knew. This suit was for her assistant, Leo Quinn. "Fine," I said. "Are the measurements precise?" "They're perfect," she said without looking up from her phone, texting. "I measured them myself, one by one." She trailed off, her head snapping up. She saw the look on my face and opened her mouth to explain, but I cut her off. "As long as they're right. It'll be ready in about 3 days." I turned to go to our bedroom, but she grabbed my arm, her eyes narrowing. "Don't you have anything to ask? You're not going to ask who this suit is for?" I looked at her, my face a blank slate. "Does it matter who it's for?" Her gaze dropped to my left hand. "Where's your ring?" I glanced at the pale, untanned circle of skin on my finger. "It gets in the way when I work," I lied. I took it off. My eyes drifted to the tattoo on her right ring finger. The skin around the thin black letters was still faintly red. Her so-called temporary tattoo. Noticing my stare, a flicker of panic crossed her face. I looked up and saw her squaring her shoulders, ready for a fight, and a bitter wave of exhaustion washed over me. Ever since Leo had shown up, it felt like this was all Eleanor and I did. Every argument, big or small, somehow led back to him. At first, she'd patiently explained that they were just colleagues, boss and employee. But after endless fights, she just let me rage while she stood there, silent and cold. Her indifference made me feel like a madman. I pulled my gaze away. "That sticker is actually pretty nice," I said quietly. "It's fake. You don't understand what's trendy with young people. So don't even." She started, the criticism flying from her lips automatically. She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening. "What did you just say?" I blinked and repeated myself. "Is there anything else? If not, I'm gonna go wash up." Eleanor shook her head, looking dazed. "No, nothing." "Right," I added, my hand on the guest room doorknob. "I have to work on some designs tonight. I'll sleep in here." Before she could respond, I closed the door. After 10 years of marriage, this suit would be my final gift to her. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my old mentor, Albright. "I signed you up for this year's National Design Gala. Don't be mad at an old man for meddling, but you've been holed up in that little studio for years. It's time you saw what's out there. You have too much talent to be trapped in one place." Reading his words, I felt a sharp pang of guilt. Albright had taken me in when I was just a kid, treated me like his own son. I'd always promised him I'd make a name for myself in the fashion world. But then I met Eleanor, and my life plan shifted from runway, shows to marriage and a family. Albright had pushed me to enter competitions before, but I'd always politely declined. Every time he saw me, he had this look of profound disappointment, like a sculptor watching his best marble being used as a doorstop. But because I seemed happy, he'd never pushed too hard. He always said that all he wanted was for me to be happy. Still, I could never quite meet his disappointed gaze. "Thank you, Albright. I'll do it," I texted back. Almost immediately, he called, his voice booming with excitement, asking if I was serious. I had to calm down. "Easy there, old man," I said with a small laugh. "You're not getting any younger. Don't have a heart attack on me." "Yes, it's true. I'm going to give it my all." He launched into a long, rambling list of advice and reminders, and for a moment I felt like I was back in high school, getting a lecture before the SATs. By the time he was done, half an hour had passed. Before hanging up, I told him I'd come over for dinner tonight. He happily agreed. I finally got out of bed and showered. It was already 10. When I walked into the living room, I was surprised to see Eleanor sitting on the sofa. Usually by this time, she'd be at the office, having breakfast with Leo. She saw me and frowned. Must be nice sleeping so soundly by yourself. It's almost noon. Her words made me realize I'd slept through the night without waking once. Before this, I could barely sleep if she wasn't next to me. A genuine smile spread across my face. It actually was pretty nice. The color drained from Eleanor's face. I shouldn't have waited to have breakfast with you, she said through clenched teeth. I just raised an eyebrow and went into the kitchen to make myself a coffee. As I walked back out, mug in hand, she instinctively reached for it. I paused. You want some? Her face stiffened. No, she snapped, embarrassed. Who wants anything from you? She stood up, ready to leave for work. At the door, she paused and said awkwardly, I booked a table for us tonight, so you can't say I forgot our anniversary. I can't. I'm having dinner with Albright tonight, I said, typing out a reply to a client on my phone. You should go with Leo. I'm sure he'd love it. Clang. She threw her keys on the floor. Ethan Carter. What the hell is your problem? She yelled. Why are you being so damn sarcastic? Is this because I missed our anniversary? Are you really going to make a federal case out of it? It's one stupid holiday. You're not going to die. Eleanor always claimed she wasn't the sentimental type, that she hated holidays and could never remember dates. But ever since Leo started working for her, they celebrated everything. Even the anniversary of their first meeting. That's when I understood. It wasn't that Eleanor hated celebrating things. She just hated celebrating them with me. I'm not making a scene, I said, looking at her evenly. I already made plans with Albright. My repeated refusals sent her into a rage. Fine. If you don't come tonight, don't ever expect me to have dinner with you again. Faced with her fury, I didn't panic and beg for forgiveness like I used to. As the front door slammed shut, I finished my coffee and went back to my studio to start working on Leo Quinn's suit. The day the suit was finished would be the day Eleanor and I were finished too. Around lunchtime, I reflexively opened my text thread with Eleanor. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard as I saw the screen, a long, one-sided conversation of my own blue bubbles. I used to message her every day, right on schedule. Did you eat? What are you up to? Busy day? She rarely replied. Once, she'd had a fight with Leo over something trivial, and came home and unleashed on me. Ethan, don't you have anything better to do? You text me all day long. Don't you have a life of your own? At the time, I thought she was just annoyed by how often I texted. I only found out later that she was just taking her anger about Leo out on me. I shut off my phone and went back to the suit. I didn't stop until Albright called to ask when I was coming over. Only then did I realize the sun had already set. I packed up and called an Uber. On the way, I saw Eleanor's profile picture pop up on my Instagram feed. I refreshed, and there was a photo of her and Leo smiling together. Eleanor rarely posted anything. For our 8th anniversary, I had asked her to post a photo of us. She'd scowled and said, I have clients on here. Posting personal stuff like that is unprofessional. In 10 years of marriage, she had never posted a single picture of me. But a picture with Leo? That was perfectly fine. I silently liked the post, then went back to sketching modifications for the suit's design. At dinner, Albright asked when I was going to bring Eleanor to visit him. Aside from a visit right after we got married, she'd never been back. Every time he asked, I'd lie and say she was swamped with work. Worried I was resentful, Albright tried to console me. It's good that she's busy, Ethan. Ambition is a powerful thing. But for Leo's mother's birthday this year, Eleanor had driven 5 hours just to have dinner with her. I had numbly asked her what was going on between them. She'd gotten angry, accusing me of having a filthy mind, insisting she was just supporting a subordinate by having a meal with his family. I looked down at the table, filled with all of mine and Eleanor's favorite dishes, and my chest ached. I'm going to divorce her, I said softly. Albright froze for a second. He didn't ask why. He just told me to eat more. When I got home after dinner, Eleanor was sitting in the living room, her face grim. I gave her a surprised look. In the past, whenever she was out with Leo, getting home by 1 or 2 in the morning was considered early. That's not even counting the nights she didn't come home at all. What took you so long to get back from dinner with your mentor? She asked, her voice cold. I slowly took off my shoes. You never seem to have a problem coming home at 2 or 3 in the morning, I said calmly. A flash of guilt crossed her face, but she quickly stiffened her neck. That was work. Leo is young and committed to this company, and I have a responsibility to him. I didn't react to his name the way I used to, didn't start a fight. I just gave a slight laugh and said, right? You're right. The rest of her argument died in her throat. After a moment, she just urged me to get back to work on Leo's suit. I just nodded. It'll be over soon, I said, as much to myself as to her. Both the suit and my marriage to Eleanor. After 2 sleepless nights, I finished the suit right on schedule. I just laid down on the bed to rest when my phone rang. It was Eleanor. Ethan, bring the suit to the Westgate Grill. Now. She hung up before I could say a word. I sighed, packed the suit carefully, and grabbed the divorce papers before heading out. When I walked into the restaurant, I saw them at a table by the window. They were laughing, heads close together. Anyone would have thought they were the couple. Ethan, hey man, you're here, Leo said, grinning when he saw me. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, affecting an air of casualness. Did you bring the suit? This kid has been whining for one of your custom pieces. Leo scratched the back of his head, feigning embarrassment. Ellie, I'm 22. Eleanor's smile was full of affection. Yeah, 22-year-old kid. He shot her a playful glare, then turned to me. You really made a suit for me, Ethan? Awesome. Let me try it on. I handed him the suit bag, and he disappeared toward the dressing rooms. I was trying to figure out how to bring up the divorce when a sharp cry came from inside. Eleanor shot up and rushed over. A moment later, she was dragging Leo back toward me. What's? I started. Smack. Eleanor slapped me across the face, her finger jabbing at my chest. I can't believe you're such a vicious person, Ethan. Hiding a pin in the lining, she shrieked. Look, he's bleeding. I actually thought you'd come to your senses, but you were planning this the whole time. I looked at the thin scratch on Leo's arm and said flatly, I didn't do that. She sneered. If it wasn't you, who was it? You've always been jealous of how I treat Leo. I just never thought you were this pathetic. I met her gaze, my eyes filled with a disappointment, so deep it felt like an abyss. Eleanor, is that really what you think of me? She faltered for a second, then said with contempt, Don't give me that. Before she could finish, I placed the divorce papers on the table in front of her. Eleanor, let's get a divorce. What did you say? She asked, her brow tightening. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice steady and firm. I said, let's get a divorce. Behind her, Leo's face was a mask of poorly concealed delight. Eleanor glanced at the papers, then let out a short, sarcastic laugh. What new trick is this, Ethan? You screw up, and now you're threatening me with divorce? It won't work. Apologize to Leo, a grown man pulling these kinds of stunts. You should be ashamed. I'm not threatening you, and I didn't do it, I said, my voice unwavering. She knew I wasn't one to deny something I'd done. Hearing me deny it twice, a sliver of doubt crept in her eyes. It really wasn't. Before she could finish, Leo cut in, his voice trembling with faux vulnerability. Ellie, it's just a little scratch. Please don't fight with Ethan over something so small. His words were like a switch. Her eyes went cold again as she looked at me. You made the suit, Ethan. If not you, then who? You think Leo would do this to himself? I glanced at Leo's triumphant smirk and suggested we call the police. The moment I said it, he panicked, grabbing Eleanor's arm. Ethan, if you don't like me, I can quit, he choked out. You don't have to do something so dangerous. What if I'd been seriously hurt? Eleanor immediately turned to comfort him, her voice soft and soothing. I pulled out my phone to dial 911, but Leo lunged forward and snatched it from my hand. Come on, man. I'm not pressing charges, he said, trying to sound reasonable. We don't need to get the cops involved. I held out my hand. Are you scared? Give me my phone back. Leo looked pleadingly at Eleanor. She glared at me. Ethan, what has gotten into you? You make a mistake and then you threaten people? Apologize to Leo right now. If you don't, we're getting a divorce. As the word divorce left her lips, her expression was one of absolute certainty. She had won. In the past, I probably would have apologized, maybe even begged her not to leave me. But now I just picked up the divorce papers and held them out to her again. Then sign this. She stared at me, frowning. Hurry up and sign it. I said, my patience gone. I have things to do. Her face flushed with anger. She grabbed the papers, ripped them into tiny pieces, and screamed, Don't push your luck, Ethan. You think threatening me is going to work. I looked at the confetti of paper on the floor, genuinely confused. Why was she so angry? Isn't this what she always wanted? Every time we fought, she'd say she regretted marrying me. Now that I was offering her an out, shouldn't she be happy? I looked up at her red, furious face. That's a shame, I said. I only brought one copy. I'll have another sent to your office in a few days. She stared at me, her brow furrowed, trying to figure out if I was bluffing. Just when I thought she'd finally agree, she got even angrier. Ethan, are you seeing someone else? Is that why you're so determined to do this? I actually laughed. Eleanor, I'm not you. I don't cheat. Her frown deepened into a scowl. Don't be ridiculous. I treat Leo like a little brother, that's all. Hearing that familiar line, I realized there was no point in arguing anymore. I'll send the divorce papers to your office. With that, I turned and walked out. Back home, I started packing. Eleanor had bought this condo after her company took off. The day we moved in, she'd leaned against me, her voice soft with a hint of guilt. Ethan, you've sacrificed so much for me. This is just temporary. One day, I'll get you a much bigger place. Eleanor's startup phase had been brutal. Every time she was about to give up, I'd tell her a story my grandfather used to tell me. You gotta walk through a mile of mud to find an acre of diamonds. We're still in the mud, Eleanor. I know you'll find your diamonds. Because of that, we used to have a painting hanging in the center of the living room. A stark, beautiful image of a long, muddy country road. Eleanor said it reminded her of my words and gave her courage. The first time Leo came over, he mentioned how much he liked it. Eleanor gave it to him on the spot. I tried to stop her, but she just frowned and called me cheap, saying it was just a painting. I should have known then. I should have realized Leo was special. It was because he looked so much like her first love, the one who had passed away years ago. I noticed the resemblance the first time I met him, but I was arrogant. I thought I could win. I forgot that the living can never compete with a ghost. I didn't take anything from the condo that wasn't mine. My suitcase was filled with only my personal belongings. Everything Eleanor had ever given me, I left behind. I took my suitcase to my studio. The competition was in a week, and I hadn't even started my final design. I couldn't find any inspiration. I walked through a park drenched in the golden light of sunset, trying to capture something, anything. But it had been so long since I'd created something from scratch, something for myself. To keep Eleanor's company afloat in the early days, I had taken any and every commission, churning out trendy, commercial pieces that had none of my soul in them. I don't know how long I walked before my phone buzzed with Eleanor's name. I answered to a barrage of insults. Ethan, Leo said he forgives you, but he wants some of your homemade seafood chowder. You need to make it and bring it over here now. Her voice was sharp, commanding. He's being the bigger person. Why can't you learn from him? A grown man holding a grudge like this is just pathetic. Are you done? I cut in. There was a pause. What's that supposed to mean? After the day I'd had, my patience was completely gone. Eleanor, when I talked about divorce today, I was serious. She scoffed, her tone dripping with disdain. Ethan, please. Everyone knows you think I'm the most important thing in your life. Are you really going to give up on your own life so easily? It was true. Everyone in our social circle knew I was hopelessly devoted to her. I'd given up my career for her, bent to her every whim, and surrendered every boundary. Maybe it was my unconditional tolerance that gave her the confidence to hurt me without consequence. I only saw you as my life, I said calmly. But you're not my life. She started yelling. Fine. You want to play this game? Meet me at the courthouse tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. Whoever doesn't show is a coward. I'll be there, I said without hesitation. The line went dead. Looking up at the darkening sky, I finally knew what my design for the competition would be. After another sleepless night, I looked exhausted, but I didn't bother cleaning myself up. I just went straight to the courthouse. I waited outside for a long time, but Eleanor was nowhere to be seen. I texted her. When are you getting here? I have other things to do. A few minutes later, her car pulled up. She got out, arm in arm with Leo, their posture intimate. It was a deliberate performance, meant to provoke and humiliate me. But I no longer cared. Eleanor, however, wasn't going to let it go that easily. Ethan, you look terrible. What happened to you in one day? Eyes are all red. Were you crying to your pillow all night? She smirked. Look, there's no one around. If you get on your knees and beg me right now, maybe I'll be nice and call it off. It wouldn't be the first time you've done it, anyway. Even though I'd already decided to let her go, hearing those words from the woman I had loved for more than a decade still stung. But at the same time, I felt a wave of relief. I was glad I was finally waking up, finally crawling out of this toxic swamp. I managed a small smile. Let's cut the crap and get this over with. I'm on a tight schedule. I walked into the building without looking back. Inside, as we were processing the paperwork, she watched me sign my name without a moment's hesitation. I think it was only then that she finally believed I was serious. But her pride wouldn't let her back down. In the end, she signed her name, her face a thundercloud. Outside, I stood by the curb, waiting for an Uber. Eleanor walked over. Why? She asked, her voice tight. I glanced at the faint mark on her finger where the tattoo had been. That temporary tattoo of yours is pretty resilient, I said with a thin smile. It's been weeks, and you can still see the outline. Her face went rigid before she recovered. So what if I lied about that? You're really throwing away a decade of our lives over one stupid little thing. Hearing her indignant, self-righteous tone, I finally understood. This was the mess I had made, and now I had to clean it up. I met her eyes. What's the point of holding onto a relationship built on lies? I asked. Eleanor, I never should have gotten involved with someone who was still in love with a ghost. When I'd first confessed my feelings to her all those years ago, she had been honest. She told me there was someone she could never forget. I, in my youthful arrogance, had sworn, I know, and I'm confident I can make you forget him. The louder my promise back then, the harder the truth was hitting me now. I had no one to blame but myself. Her voice was raspy. What are you talking about? I looked at her, my expression unreadable. I'm saying I regret it, I said plainly. Eleanor, I concede. I'm done. You can be with whoever you want. She stared at me, disbelief etched on her face. In her world, I was the one who cherished our relationship above all else. I was the one who told anyone who would listen how lucky I was to be with her. And now, I was saying I regretted it. Ethan, you promised you would always be with me, she said, her voice cracking. Now you're just running away. I let out a soft, weary laugh. Eleanor, I'm a person. My heart is made of flesh and blood, not stone. It's over. There's nothing more to say. Let's just part ways peacefully. My refusal to bend infuriated her. She was used to my complete submission. The sudden shift in my attitude over the past few days had thrown her world off its axis. Fine, she hissed. Let's part ways peacefully. After that day, I threw myself completely into my competition prep. The theme was farewell, and I was designing a dress. A final eulogy for my relationship with Eleanor. I didn't see her, but updates on her life were unavoidable on social media. After the divorce, she and Leo were officially a couple. She even gave him the condo we used to live in. Leo made sure to rub it in, sending me a photo of the new deed in his name. I'm 22, you're 32. What are you going to do? Fight me for her. Everything you never got, I got without even trying. Seeing the home filled with so many memories just handed over to someone else. It hurt, but once I dove back into my work, I managed to push it from my mind. The day before the competition, my dress was finally finished. That same day, my best friend from college, Chloe, flew back into the country after more than a decade abroad. The second she got off the plane, she was demanding we go for hot pot. I took her to a new place that was getting a lot of buzz online. I should have known the city was too small. Standing right by the entrance were Eleanor and Leo. When she saw me with Chloe, her face immediately darkened. She strode over, her voice dripping with scorn. So this is why you wanted a divorce. And here I was, feeling guilty, actually wondering if I'd hurt you. Turns out I was just flattering myself. I was speechless, listening to the torrent of baseless accusations. Chloe, who knew the whole story, shot me an exasperated, I told you so look before turning her disdain on Eleanor. So you're the one who wants to have her cake and eat it too. Chloe said, looking her up and down. You're not all that. Honestly, Ethan, your taste is slipping. I couldn't argue with her last point. I was beginning to think my taste was terrible. Eleanor was never good with words. Flustered, she glared at me. Ethan, are you just going to stand there and let her insult me? Honestly, I said without hesitation. I think she has a point. I turned to Chloe. Do you want to go somewhere else? She refused. Throughout the entire meal, I could feel Eleanor's glare burning a hole in my back. But I didn't have time to dwell on it. After dinner, I rushed back to the studio to put the final touches on my dress. Right before the competition began, Albright called to tell me not to be nervous. Since all the pieces were already complete, the results were announced the same day. When I saw my name on the big screen next to the silver medal, I couldn't believe it. Standing on the stage, I saw Albright and Chloe in the crowd, cheering, and it finally sank in. I had won. Later, I handed the trophy to Albright. I'm sorry, sir, I said. I let you down. He just smiled. You freed yourself from your past, Ethan. That's more than enough. 3 days after the competition, I saw Eleanor's company in the business section of the news. City's leading green tech firm suffers 8-figure loss due to a disastrous decision by its newly appointed general manager. I stared at the words newly appointed general manager, confused. I didn't know her company even had a GM. Just then, a friend called to gossip about it. Turns out, the new GM was Leo Quinn. The disastrous decision was his first official act. My friend asked what I thought about it, but I just laughed and said nothing. That was Eleanor's choice. It had nothing to do with me anymore. What I didn't expect was for Eleanor to show up at my studio the next day. She looked gaunt, with dark circles under her eyes. I looked at her, puzzled, and maybe it was my imagination, but I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes. Can I help you? She hesitated for a moment. Ethan, she said, her voice small, I want to eat your seafood chowder. I was stunned. Seafood chowder was her absolute favorite. I had spent months learning from different chefs just to perfect the recipe for her. But then I found out Leo was allergic to shellfish, and she hadn't touched it in years. Hearing her request now, I honestly couldn't remember how to make it. I forgot, I said simply. She didn't believe me. How could you? You learned it specifically for me. Are you still angry? I'm sorry, okay? I'll apologize. Hearing the word sorry come from Eleanor's mouth was shocking. But that's all it was, a shock. I looked at her, my expression cool, my voice even. I'm not angry. She still didn't believe me. Of course you're angry, she insisted. Why else would you have divorced me? She held up her left hand. I had the tattoo removed. Leo tricked me into getting it. I didn't want to. I looked at the scarred, blackish smudge on her ring finger and let out a humorless laugh. So what if you had it removed? The mark is still there. No, it's not like that, she argued desperately. I had a moment of weakness. If it bothers you, I can get your name tattooed there instead. Would that make it better? I frowned, a wave of disgust washing over me. Eleanor, don't you feel sick saying that? That mark will always be a reminder that you cheated on me. I didn't. I never did anything to disrespect you, she stammered. It wasn't physical. I just had an emotional slip, but my body has always been yours. Her logic was so baffling I could only laugh. And what if I got a matching tattoo with Chloe? Would you feel the same way then? Chloe had always been a sore spot for Eleanor, a phantom rival. As expected, her face fell. See, I said mockingly, you can't even handle the idea of it. So how do you expect me to forgive you? Eleanor's lips moved, but no sound came out. If there's nothing else, please leave, I said, my voice flat. I had no energy for this. After that day, it was like Eleanor was possessed. She started apologizing constantly. She called and texted me every day. Sometimes, she'd even bring food she'd made to my studio. She never said anything important, just little things. The sky is so blue today. Did you see it? I think the chef in the company cafeteria is going through a breakup. Everything is so salty. I heard that new movie is supposed to be really good. Do you want to go see it? Reading the familiar words, I realized these were the same kinds of messages I used to send her. 3 days later, Leo Quinn showed up at my studio. The little room, which usually saw less traffic than a graveyard, was suddenly a hot spot. I felt my space being invaded. I looked at the young man standing before me, his face a mask of resentment, and wondered why he was here. What did you say to Ellie? He demanded. She fired me. So, she let him go. Did you ever consider that it might be an issue with your performance? I asked. No way, he said confidently. Ellie told me she loved me. You must have done something behind my back. Before I could respond, Eleanor walked in, carrying a lunchbox. When she saw Leo, she frowned. What are you doing here? Leo's eyes fell to the lunchbox in her hands, and his expression soured. Ellie, did you make that for him? Eleanor ignored him and called for security to remove him. Get out. I don't want to see you again. As the guards dragged him away, Leo struggled, shouting, Ellie, you said you loved me. How could you do this to me? Hearing this, Eleanor immediately looked back at me. When she saw my face was completely devoid of emotion, the light in her eyes died. Ethan, she asked, her voice hollow, why aren't you jealous anymore? All these visits were disrupting my work. If there's nothing else, you should leave too. I have to get back to it. Her face fell. She placed the lunchbox on my desk and forced a smile that was sadder than tears. Okay, I'll go. Just make sure you eat. Just as she finished speaking, Chloe burst through the door, loudly declaring her craving for Korean barbecue. I looked at her with a helpless sigh. Go sit down and wait. I'll go with you when I'm done. Eleanor stared at me, her voice trembling with indignation. Why does she get to stay here? Chloe grinned triumphantly. Because Ethan is designing my wedding dress. The color drained from Eleanor's face. She looked at me, her voice barely a whisper. Are you marrying her? I didn't deny it. In that instant, it was like all the life force drained out of her, leaving an empty shell behind. I didn't say another word, just lowered my head and went back to designing the wedding attire for Chloe and her fiancé. When I looked up again, Eleanor was gone. She didn't come back after that. The day before our divorce's mandatory waiting period was over, Eleanor was in a car accident. The other driver was Leo Quinn. After Eleanor mistakenly concluded that I was marrying Chloe, she had blamed everything on Leo. She filed a lawsuit against him to recover the company's losses. Leo, in disbelief that she would turn on him so completely, went to her office to confront her. All he got was a brutal, humiliating dressing down. Driven mad with rage, Leo waited for her after work and rammed into her with his pickup truck. Eleanor died on the way to the hospital. And just like that chapter of my life was well and truly over. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that somewhere in the future, I would find someone who wouldn't betray the heart I gave them.